Thank you. Sir, did you hear what the Commonwealth just alleged? It would prove the case went to trial with regard to indictment number 3.
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you do those things or joins others in doing those acts?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty to today, you are admitting the facts described just now by ADA Connor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Walsh, did you in fact willfully remove or convey the body of Anna Walsh or her remains, not being lawfully authorized to do so?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you now plead guilty to these indictments willingly and voluntarily?
Yes, Your Honor.
Has anyone threatened you or forced you in any way to plead guilty to these 2 indictments?
No, Your Honor.
Has anyone promised you anything in return for your plea of guilty to these 2 indictments other than the terms of the plea agreement that we discussed? Excuse me, there's no plea agreement. That's what happens when you keep reading from the book, and you shouldn't. Has anyone promised you anything in return for your plea of guilty to these 2 indictments?
No, Your Honor.
Have you had enough time to discuss your rights, your case, your defenses, and the possible consequences of your guilty plea with your attorney?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you feel that Attorney Tipton and Attorney Porges have acted in your best interest, that he and she have fully, fairly, and adequately represented you in this case?
Yes.
Are you confused in any way by any of the questions I've asked you today?
No, Your Honor.
As I understand it then, sir, you're pleading guilty to these 2 indictments because you wish to plead guilty because you are guilty. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Counsel, do you know, defense counsel first, do you know of any reason why I should not accept your client's guilty plea?
Do not.
Same question to the Commonwealth.
Your Honor, I'll be brief, but we had this is a non-negotiated plea with the Commonwealth. We had some objections to it. But my concern was where the defendant equivocates on the factual basis that the Commonwealth read in, that is one reason you should not take it. And the second is this count 3 revolves around improper disposal of Ms. Walsh's remains. And the defendant, when asked his marriage status, said that he was married. And consequently, Your Honor, then that is not an accurate relaying of his current status to the court and could be invalidating the plea. So I believe he has to be asked that question again. And I believe that if he continues to say he's married, that he's negating facts of count 3.
All right, I'll give defense counsel an opportunity to speak with your client.
Your Honor, I apologize. I couldn't exactly hear what Mr. Connor's caveat was.
In response to one of the early questions I asked of the defendant, I asked him if he was married, and he said yes, he was. And the Commonwealth was raising the point that if that were true, that it might negate proof of the disinterment, which requires a human body or remains. Do you want to speak to your client about that?
A moment, Your Honor. Respectfully, I don't see this as a relevant or material issue. If the court wants clarification, I'm happy to approach sidebar.
Why don't we do that?
Okay.
So, Mr. Walsh, earlier today, I asked you whether you were married, and you answered yes, you were married. Do you remember that?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is it correct that you were married to Anna Walsh for a period of time,
Yes, Your Honor.
and that under the law, death extinguishes marriage? It may not religiously or otherwise, spiritually, but under the law, when someone dies or when someone is dead, you can no longer be married to them. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
And so are you married today?
Your Honor, if I may, insofar as previous discussions, for purposes of a successful plea colloquy and meeting the elements of the crime, he is acquiescing to the fact that lawfully he is not married today.
All right, you heard what your lawyer just said? Agree with what your lawyer just said?
Yes, Your Honor, I agree.
All right. Anything else that we need to cover?
No, Your Honor.
All right. To the extent that the Commonwealth is objecting to the taking of the plea on other grounds, that is overruled. My job here is to make sure that I have a valid plea. And that means that the defendant is pleading guilty to the elements that the Commonwealth would have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And I have inquired sufficiently to assure myself that he has admitted to each of the elements of the two offenses of indictment 02 and 03. So I know we discussed at an earlier point the issue of victim notification, and I'll ask on the record now for the Commonwealth. Has the Commonwealth advised the victims of this case of the defendant's offer to change his plea to guilty?
Yes, we have notified the victims, Your Honor.
And based on our prior discussions, I understand that the victims may wish to address this court prior to any sentencing of the defendant.
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right. And both parties that we've talked about this have agreed that we're not going to be sentencing the defendant today on the indictments that he's now pleading guilty to, correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Attorney Tipton Borges? All right. And we'll give the victims a reasonable opportunity to address the court before sentencing, of course.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You understand, Mr. Walsh, that at the time that we do get to sentencing, that by law, I'm not bound to any recommendation that's made by the prosecution or your lawyers. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
And that I may impose any sentence permitted by law up to the maximum allowable sentence.
Yes, Your Honor.
Having considered Mr. Walsh's criminal history, the government's proffered evidence, I will later consider the victim's statements to the court for matters for sentencing. I find that Mr. Walsh has met the requirements to tender a plea to counts 2 and to counts 3. I make the following findings. I find that the defendant is not presently under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and that he hasn't reported that he's not presently suffering from any mental illness or condition, and that he's not presently taking any medications. I find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and the consequences of his pleading guilty. I find that the defendant's change of plea to guilty with respect to each of the two indictments, 02 and 03, is made knowingly, willingly, intelligently, and voluntarily, and with the full knowledge of its consequences. I find that the defendant's change of plea on these two indictments to guilty is made upon and with the advice of competent counsel. And I find there's a factual basis in the evidence as has been summarized by the prosecution and limited by defense counsel on behalf of the defendant for each of the two indictments to which the defendant now pleads guilty. Accordingly, I accept Mr. Walsh's plea of guilty as to indictments 002 and 003. Anything else that counsel that we need to do on the change of plea?
No, Your Honor.
All right. So let me turn to empanelment. I think you each had an opportunity last night to look at the questionnaire, and I know that defense counsel asked for an additional question to be added. I did add that. All right, I do have the right version. Counsel, if you want to come up, you can take a look at what I added.